would it not be true that if we were to combine the plats tonight anyway, they would still be able to, they would still have to come back at a future meeting to get all of their land
Yes,
use?
the final, you have to approve the final plat.
So perhaps it's better to address these driveway access situations when that comes back for review as opposed to doing it when they're trying to combine the plat. I know why they're trying to combine the plat so they can just be working with one piece of property for all, licensure that they need. So if we were to just combine the plats
Tonight.
tonight or at the next
Can-
meeting, don't they still have to come back and talk about driveways and how the property is
Yes.
going to look and landscaping and
Correct.
If we can have Tanya address
If
that
I could
question.
just interject, I actually have the answer to your question. I was mentioning to the city attorney, one of the exhibits that we have is the proposed site plan, and it shows that there's no access at all from 125th Street. So the Planning Commission's recommendation was already incorporated. There's no ingress or egress at all. So it's not an issue. It's not an issue of the size of a truck. You just can't access the site from 125th Street, period. So that's one of the exhibits that you have in your packet, if you want to take a look at it.
Okay. Well, being that you made that statement, Councilman, that if what we are approving, what we're being asked to approve tonight, it's simply to make it one lot. So we could pretty much do that, and then they can go and get whatever other permits that they need. They will still going to come to us when it comes to request for ingress or egress or where the face is going to be, and
with
we're not approving that tonight with this resolution.
if the councilwoman who represents this district is happy with having that considered again tonight, I'm happy to put it back for consideration. We're going to be here a long time tonight,
Okay.
guys.
Okay, I don't see a site plan. I'm willing, like I said, I'm willing to go ahead, but I still want to make sure there is a restrictive covenant with it, that there'll be no, then we can say no egress. But I didn't, like I said, I didn't see the site plan. I just want to make sure if we do it, that it will remain, the front parcel will remain C3, and there'll be no loading from 123rd Street.
Through the
Mr.
mayor, I would feel more comfortable if we just went on and tabled the item, and we come back next meeting with the full understanding on what we're gonna do.
And that's going to simplify my minutes, by the way, if we do it that way.
I'm recommending that we go ahead and table the item until the next
Well, he
meeting.
made the motion and was seconded.
Perfect. All right, so tab H it is. Tab H, proposed resolution of the mayor and city council of the city of North Miami, Florida, approving the selection of ZTI LLC as the lowest responsive bidder for the provision of swimming pool resurfacing services in accordance with the terms, conditions, and specifications contained in the Thomas Sasso Pool Deck Resurfacing Invitation to Bid Number 16-15-16, further authorizing the interim city manager and the interim city attorney to negotiate and execute an agreement for the provision of stated services with CTI LLC at a cost not to exceed $76,565, and in the event negotiations fail, authorizing the interim city manager and interim city attorney to negotiate and execute an agreement with the next lowest responsive firm until an agreement is executed, providing for an effective date and for all of the purposes.
Mr. Mayor, this is one of our budgeted items that was budgeted during the budget process for rehabbing of Thomas Sasso Pool on 125th Street and Northwest 11th Avenue. The item in front of you today is for the pool decking. This facility is getting a complete overhaul. This particular item is for the pool decking to do work at an amount of $76,565. Just an application of non-skid, slip-resistant decking.
Have we done business with this vendor before?
No, this is the first time doing business with this vendor, sir. But it was bid out, and this was the lowest responsive bidder, sir.
Okay. The item is open to the public. Public hearing is now open on the item. If not, we'll come back to the dais. I see no one coming.
Move approval?
Wait, all right, can I have a question?
I'll withdraw my motion.
Not a problem, sir. Is this the cause of why we having the slight delay of this is part of the opening of the pool?
It's. I don't think this is the actual part. There are other items as far as the infrastructure of the pool, some of the filters, and some of the other items, sir.
Okay.
Okay, Mr. Galvin?
Motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion made by Councilman Galvin to approve tab H as is.
Second.
That motion was seconded by Vice Mayor Desume.
Question. I'm sorry,
Mm.
Mr. Mayor. Mr. If I could ask you, the planning director, the RFB or the IFB that went out was for 75,000, and this is 76,000. So where's the extra 1,500 or 1,600?
Good evening,
Yes.
Mr. Mayor, council members, Vice Mayor DeSulme, Alberto Estrada, Purchasing Director. What you see there in the solicitation is simply a budget amount. It's an estimated amount that is typically put in any and all solicitations. It simply announces to any interested bidders what our estimated amount is, really.
Okay.
It's not even a budget amount, it's an estimate of what we anticipate that's gonna cost.
Okay.
And as you can see, the bid actually came in at a little bit over that amount.
Got it. Okay, thank you, sir.
All right.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Item passes with a 5-0 vote. Tab I. Proposed resolution of the mayor and city council of the city of North Miami, Florida, approving the city's administration's competitive selection of Magog Inc. as the second lowest responsible contractor to furnish materials, equipment, tools, machinery, supervision, expertise, and services required for the installation of 2 traffic circles, further authorizing the interim city manager and interim city attorney to negotiate and execute an agreement for the installation of 2 traffic circles at selected locations in the amount not to exceed $221,527.80 in accordance with the terms, conditions, and specifications contained in the invitation for bid 32-inch traffic circle project IFB number 43-07-15 as amended, providing for an effective date and for all of the purposes.
Mr. Mayor and Council, this item did come before you, I believe, about a month ago, a month and a half ago, for 2 traffic circles, one on 11th Avenue Northwest 133rd Street, the other on 12th Avenue and Northeast 131st Street. At that time, the award was given to Solo Construction to perform the bid as they were the lowest responsive bidder. Solo Construction failed to submit the necessary paperwork in the timely manner. We did attempt to work with them, and they weren't able to get the paperwork in. They did have, some internal problems, so we are requesting at this time to move to the second responsive bidder. The price difference is about $1,200 more, but we're requesting to move forward so we can get these traffic circles taken care of.
Thank you. Public hearing is open on the item. You have to come to the mic. Oh, okay. I thought you wanted to come up. He's just waving.
Richard Anise, 13030 Northeast 10th Avenue. As I mentioned at the your town hall meeting, Mayor, I think $110,000 for a traffic circle is crazy. We need a lot more traffic circles or slowing down of traffic, and you could split that 110 that you want to do for 12th Avenue and put the other one on my street on 10th Avenue, which is the one I requested months ago. They don't have to be that aesthetic. We don't have to put extra lighting and palm trees or whatever the hell you want to put in there. They need to be functional. You can do a lot more functional traffic circles for a lot less money and put a lot more of them out there, or put speed bumps, or do other things that we need to get done. the 25-mile-an-hour signs, all that's done so far is if you ever did write some tickets, they would be a little higher ticket because people are still speeding the same way they were speeding before. They're just going over 25 instead of over 30. So we do need to slow traffic down in these neighborhoods, and $110,000 per traffic circle is just way too much money.
Public hearing is still open, but I see no one coming to the mic, so it's closed now. Members on the dais, any comment, questions?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
To the manager or Public Works, can we do traffic circles for less money, or is that's what they cost?
That's the cost of the traffic circles. The city's installed about 15 traffic circles over the last several years, and all of the traffic circles have been right in around this same price. Right now, to change the traffic circles would take us, out of aesthetics. So we could probably do a smaller traffic circle. It might not be, people still speed really fast, and we have accidents around these traffic circles. To make one any smaller, I think would almost defeat the purpose of slowing people down. I live next to one of them, but
Does
making
help?
it any smaller would take, and then you wouldn't have the parity, and everybody wouldn't have the same circles. The circles wouldn't look as, with the trees and the lights inside of them. So changing it, if it is the will of the body, we could possibly look at changing them. We would have to go back to the county with the new plan and show them the new traffic circles that we would like to put in.
Okay. I'd like to find some more money for some more traffic circles, though, but I'd make a motion to approve.
I'm sorry,
think,
before that motion, can I ask, the second lowest responsive, why we go to the second lowest?
The first bidder failed to turn in the necessary
Okay.
paperwork in the requirements.
Was shot and killed,
Oh my God.
Yes,
Graphic.
Expand on that.
Being graphic.
and we couldn't. That's a scale of giving the
Yeah, that's
information.
good. We didn't need all that.
Oh,
Yeah,
I
he
didn't
just, my God.
Suffice it to say that we could not obtain a certificate of insurance and the necessary payment and performance bonds. So those were preconditions to entering into the agreement. We were not able to.
Mr. Mayor, on the issue of the traffic circle, I have spoken to to the manager about the price. I don't know if we could look around at various other cities who have traffic circles and see. I was even questioning if our own Public Works Department can't help out or something. It is a lot of money, but we certainly do need them. You made a motion, Madam Keys? Okay, I'll second it.
So we have
Councilwoman.
we have a motion made by Councilwoman Keys to approve tab I as is. That motion was seconded by Vice Mayor Desiree. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Item passes with a 5-0 vote. Tab J, proposed resolution of the mayor and city council of the city of North Miami, Florida, authorizing the interim city manager to issue a purchase order to Southern Sewer Equipment Sales and Services, Inc., as the sole source provider of VACCON equipment sales, parts, and maintenance services as required to refurbish city equipment for ongoing maintenance of the city's stormwater drainage infrastructure system at a cost not to exceed $100,000 in accordance with Section 7-143 of the City of North Miami Code of Ordinances, providing for an effective date and for all other purposes. That is tab J.
Mr. Mayor, this item is to refurbish one of our VACCON trucks. The VACCON trucks are used to clean the storm drains throughout the city. Last month, we, along with the trucks that we currently have, we still have to do some contracting out for other individuals to help us do this. These vehicles don't have high mileage. That's why we are paying to refurbish the one that we do have. And this will just help us in moving forward to continue to protect the city from flooding and when we have heavy rains.
Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to be heard on the item? Public hearing is now open, and I see no one coming. It's now closed.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move approval.
Second.
All right.
I have a motion made by Councilman Galvin to approve tab J as is. That motion was seconded by Councilman Bieneme. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Item passes with a 5-0.
Four.
That's important. Item passes with a 4-0 vote, but I do have to record
Do
this
you
vote
have
when he
Georgia
gets
on your
back.
mind tonight?
Don't start, Mayor. Don't start with me. I just can't look back. I don't have eyes back there. So when he gets back, I'll record his vote. But for now, it's a 4-0 vote. Tab K. Proposed resolution of the mayor and city council of the city of North Miami, Florida, approving the selection of Solutions Capital Group, Inc. as the lowest responsive local bidder for the construction of concrete walls at designated locations in accordance with the terms, conditions, and specifications contained in the invitation for bid concrete wall and Trex fence number 02-15-16 as amended, further authorizing the interim city manager and interim city attorney to negotiate and execute an agreement for the provisions of such walls with Solutions Capital Group, Inc. at a cost not to exceed $63,995, and in the event negotiations fail, authorizing the interim city manager and interim city attorney to negotiate and execute an agreement with the next lowest responsive firm until an agreement is executed, providing for an effective date and for all other purposes. Mayor, before we continue, may I record his vote on the previous
ahead.
item? Councilman Desmay, how do you vote on tab J? It's been approved by a 4-0 margin.
What is tab J?
Tab J was,
Oh, yes, yes, yes.
okay, so with Councilman Vice Mayor Desmay's vote, tab J was approved with a 5-0 vote. Thank you, Mayor.
Mr. Mayor, tab K is for a concrete wall and fence to be erected over at the Northeast 120th Road and Canal Drive. The award was awarded to Solutions Capital. They are the lowest responsible bidder once you take into effect their 10% local preference. Staff is recommended to move approval with this company, and they're, once they do receive the notice to proceed, they're supposed to be complete within 90 days.
Which tab is this?
Okay.
Is
Gonna be
question,
defense.
is that the concrete wall and the fence? Or is that just? Okay. Thank you.
When?
In San Souci, they're having security issues, so there's fences going at the end of Canal Street in two spots, and another place where they're jumping over, the hedges are not keeping them out. And then at the end of 121st Street, there's a big opening between two apartment buildings. So there's fence, so we're just going to put concrete to close it up. So it's three
So
fences.
it's not gonna be higher.
No, it's,
No.
And this was a
Fences
budgeted item
more.
during the budget
It's not gonna be
process.
higher. The fence not gonna be higher than the
about
way it is now.
6 feet.
6 feet, it's gonna be a 6 feet concrete fence.
Oh,
It's gonna be a continuation of the fences on either side.
Is it public is this?
No, now we have to go to the public.
Oh.
Public hearing is open on the item for anyone
William
who
Welsh,
wishes to be heard.
San Souci homeowners, 1180, 118th Road. This fence is a definite necessity to our community. We've had drug busts at the parks at the end of at the canal and over by 121st Street, where kids are going in and drinking and doing drugs. This would help save them out. We've had people breaking the fence, cutting the fences over at 120 Road. We've had criminals coming across North Bay Road where there's hedges and a short fence, and they just jump the walls and break in. This would save the police a lot of work, and it would make the city and the community a little bit safer. Thank you.
Good evening, Annie Montgomery, 2082 Northeast 124th Street. I am very familiar with where this wall or fence is supposed to go up. I really recommend it. There's a lot of activity. They jump across that, as the gentleman before me said, they cut the fence. There's a lot, it's a creation of crime, really, not having it. So it would be great to see that take place. Thank you.
Thank you. Public hearing is now closed. Members of the
Motion
council.
approval?
Second. Oh.
Okay.
I have a motion made by Councilwoman Keys to approve tab K as is. The motion was seconded by Councilman Bieneme. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, all opposed? Item passes with a 5-0 vote. Tab L and M will be read at the last, towards the end of the agenda, so now we are gonna skip ahead to tab N as in Nancy. Proposed resolution of the mayor and city council of the city of North Miami, Florida, co-designating a portion of Northeast 146th Street between the FEC Railway and Northeast 18th Avenue to be known as Michael Deezer Way, authorizing the interim city manager to allocate and expend the required funds to cover the cost for signage and to do all things necessary to effectuate the co-designation, providing for an effective date and for all other purposes.
Mr. Mayor, this is an item that was brought forth to designate the street where Mr. Deezer's done, a lot of work for this community. Mr. Deezer was supposed to be here this evening, however, he's stuck in New York with the problems that we have and with security. So he was stuck at the airport and couldn't make it here tonight.
We don't have anything to project on the screen?
No, sir, not for this
No?
item, sir.
I understand Mr. Deezer's assistant was in the audience earlier. I don't know if she's still here. Mariana? She had to go? Okay, we'll open it to the public, see if there is any objection to the resolution.
Mike
Objection
Moscow-
or support?
Mike Moscow, Northeast, 2215 Northeast 123rd Street. I'm going to keep it simple. If Mr. Deezer wants a road named after him, he should pay for the signs.
Public hearing is still open? Public hearing is now closed. Now we'll come to the dais for more comments or questions. The reason why I supported when I was approached by Mr. Deezer if I would bring the resolution to the table is because I was introduced to him after I got elected, and I became aware of the work that he has been doing. He as an entrepreneur, in the city of North Miami, and I know he supports PAL, and he, whenever we go to him for certain activities of the city, as a matter of fact, the last PAL for fundraising gala was held at Deezer Car Collection, and his museum there brings about 15,000 people or tourists to the city of North Miami, and we know that what happens when you have tourists that are attracted from all over the world to come and visit a car collection, a museum in your city. It opens the opportunity for them to discover your city, and he's involved in a lot of charities, and he supports MOCA a great deal. He's worked in concert with MOCA in many projects, and with that, I support his request for the street to be renamed after him. Any other comments or questions?
Is it us or is it the public?
No, us now.
Okay.
Mm.
Mr. Mayor, I don't have any problem with the resolution. My concern is there a procedure, or do we just, Because I don't want this to
Once it's approved at this level with our body, it does have to go to the county for approval.
okay.
So it will go to the
And-
county
and
once.
Normally, Mr. Manager, how much are these for the signage and the costs associated with? I mean, we've done it in the past for community.
We've done it in the past. So,
So how much
the
are-
signage is minimal. I don't think the signage is above
Okay.
$2,000.
Oh, okay.
I think they're like $75 per
Yeah.
sign.
Oh, okay. Mr. Galvin, this is your district. Are we?
Well, I thank the mayor for bringing this forward. I think he's certainly deserving. The only thing that I'll add is something that I've been asking for a couple of months now. Can we please pave 146th Street, especially there at the FEC right away? It is just horrid. And with the number of people we now have coming to the community to spend money, it's like our only tourist destination, if you will. Please, if we could pave the area and gussy it up a little bit, I'd be very appreciative.
It is on our list to be paid this year, sir.
I move, Mr. Mayor.
All right. Second.
I have a motion made by Vice Mayor Desmay to approve tab N as is. That motion was seconded by Mayor Joseph. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Item passes with a 5-0 vote. Tab O, proposed ordinance, second reading of the mayor and city council of the city of North Miami, Florida, amending chapter 7 of the city of North Miami Code of Ordinances entitled Finance by amending Article 3 entitled Procurement Code, specifically at section 7-151 entitled Procedure to provide preference to local business and city contracts, to require the submission of a community benefits plan and local hiring initiatives and bid submission of a community benefits plan, local hiring initiatives and bid proposals for city-funded projects exceeding $250,000, providing for repeal, conflicts, severability, codification, and an effective date. That is tab O.
Mr. Mayor, this is the second reading of this ordinance. Upon conclusion of the last ordinance, staff did go back and review several purchases over the last, several capital items over the last couple of years to see which would fall into this category. As of right now, the sidewalk replacements was really one of the only items that fell into this category. At the time, staff, sees no problem at this moment. It is important to note that this is for capital projects only and those that are going to be spent directly out of the general fund, as we can have no commingled funds used for local preferences.
Thank you very much, Mr. Manager. At this time, we'll open it to the public for anyone who wishes to be heard on this item. But I see no one coming, so public hearing is closed. This is the second reading. Pause. Anyone with any comment?
Move approval?
Second. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, go ahead.
I make that call, y'all. That motion was made by Councilman Galvin. That motion was seconded by Vice Mayor Desiree.
Are you gonna do it like that?
Well, give it to him since it's my item.
So the motion was made by Councilman Galvin. It was seconded by Mayor Joseph. And since this is in fact an ordinance, I have to conduct a roll call vote. Mayor Joseph,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Desiree,
Yes.
Councilwoman Keys,
No.
Councilman Galvin,
Yes.
Councilman Bieneme.
Yes.
Item passes with a 4-1 vote. Tab P was pulled off the agenda. It was removed, so we're skipping tab P. Tab Q. Proposed ordinance, first reading of the mayor and city council of the city of North Miami, Florida, amending chapter 29 of the North Miami Code of Ordinances entitled Land Development Regulations by amending Article 5, Division 6 entitled Boats, Docks, Seawalls, etc., specifically at Section 5-601 entitled Boats and Section 5-602 entitled Docks to establish appropriate regulations for the townhouse properties identified as sections 1 through 9 of Arta Estates subdivision located along the south side of the waterway canal immediately north of Northeast 123rd Street by allowing boats to be moored either parallel or perpendicular to the property line abutting the canal, and by revisiting the projection of mooring piles, open parentheses, dolphins, close parentheses, floating vessel platforms, hydro hoists, boat lifts, and watercrafts into the city's waterways or canals from the current maximum of 20% of the width of the canal, or 25 feet, whichever is less, to a maximum of 25 feet as measured from the recorded property line, providing for repeal, providing for conflicts, providing for severability, providing for codification, and an effective date. And that is tab Q.
Mr. Manager, Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, at this time.
I'll take it.
With the money.
$200,000 a year? I'll take it anytime.
You make more than that.
Hey, take a pay cut.
Mr. Mayor, at this time, staff does have a presentation on the item. We're first gonna hear from Tanya Wilson Sejour, followed by the building official, Steve Pizzullo, and then I will conclude the item once we're done with those two, sir.
For the record, Tanya Wilson Sejour, Planning Director with Community Planning and Development. I'll read the staff recommendation into the public record. Staff is recommending that the Mayor and Council pass and adopt the proposed ordinance as revised by the Planning Commission to amend Chapter 29 of the North Miami Code of Ordinances entitled Land Development Regulations by amending the text of Article 5, Division 6, boats, docks, seawalls, specifically at Section 5-602, boats, and Section 5-602 for docks, to establish appropriate regulations for the townhome properties identified as Section 1 through 9 of Aretha Estate subdivision and located along the south side of the canal immediately north of Northeast 123rd Street to provide for the perpendicular mooring of boats and for a maximum projection of mooring piles, floating vessels, platforms, and similar structures of 25 feet into the budding canal. I'll provide some background. We have a presentation that was prepared for Mayor and Council and also for the audience to follow along for this text amendment to the code. As mentioned in the recommendation, the reading, it's specific to Aretha Estate subdivision that's located on the south side of the 123rd Street Canal. The existing regulations from the code allow for the parallel mooring of boats, and as identified in Section 5-601 of the code, and it allows for a maximum projection of 25 feet or 20% of the width of the canal, whichever is less. The applicant's request, we have co-applicants on this item. The co-applicant's request is to provide for perpendicular mooring of those boats and to allow for the projection of 25 feet into the waterway. Just to orient you in terms of the location, for those that aren't particularly familiar with the specific area of the city that we're referring to, as mentioned before, it's the Aretha Estates subdivision located along 123rd Street, and it's specific to the canal that those properties back up to. So we have an exhibit from GIS that shows you the actual dimensions of the waterways. I'm not sure if you can see the average numbers that are there. It's somewhat tiny, so I'll just mention that for the benefit of the public. The measurement there stretches between 95 feet to 100 feet in some places of the waterway. And Aretha Estates itself was established back in 1966. So looking at some of the issues that were raised in the letter of intent from the co-applicants, they purported that the current provisions are overly restrictive and creates an undue burden. They've also purported that due to the limited lot width of 19 feet of the average size of parcels on the townhome development, it's essentially impossible to be able to to moor the boats in a parallel fashion along the waterways. And they've also suggested that it hinders their quality of life due to the frequent citations from code enforcement not being able to meet the provisions of the code. They've also purported that it's burdensome to be able to encroach on the neighboring properties whenever the vessels are moored in a parallel fashion. There's often an overhang of those vessels onto the neighboring lots. Looking at the criteria from the code, what's required based on our assessment of the text amendment, the city has to be able to prove from section 3-1004 that in approving the text amendment or considering the text amendment, that it promotes public health, safety, and welfare. It doesn't permit uses the comprehensive land use plan prohibits in the area affected by the text amendment in this case, not zoning map. There's no zoning map change. The third one is that it doesn't allow densities and intensities in excess of the densities and intensities which are permitted by the future land use categories of affected property, that it will not cause a decline in the level of service for public infrastructure. It does not directly conflict with the goals, objectives, and policies of the comprehensive plan. And then the last one is that it furthers the orderly development of the city. There were several tiers of analysis that were done on this text amendment request. The first one, of course, because the North Miami Police Department has oversight of the safety and security of those waterways. It was reviewed by our police department, and their assessment and findings is that it doesn't impede navigation along the waterways, wouldn't cause a decline in the level of service of public services, and there's no adverse impact to safety and security. We also extended a courtesy review. Durham itself doesn't have jurisdiction over the waters, but it does oversee all environmental affairs for the county. So Durham provided a courtesy review for the city, and they've rendered an opinion that there's no adverse impact to the environment. That's just a general synopsis in terms of staff looking at the text amendment request. Based on our findings, staff, of course, is recommending approval for this item, as we mentioned at the beginning of the presentation.
Good.
And then lastly, the city manager asked us to just do a simple sample of some of the surrounding cities that also are considered as coastal communities, similar to North Miami. And we found that this provision that's being requested, or the text amendment that's being requested, is not unusual or an anomaly or an exception from what we see in some of the other cities. You'll notice we sampled Boca Raton, North Miami Beach, Port St. Lucie, Miami Beach, Lauderdale by the Sea, Jupiter, Fort Lauderdale, and we found the average projection range between 20 to 25 feet, and in some cases 40 feet. The minimum of the 20% of the waterway also was a popular provision that we saw across the board. And the perpendicular mooring itself, though, we found by and large is frequently viewed in other codes of some of those other coastal communities that we've looked at. And these are just pictures of the waterways for those that have not been on the actual waterway to see the width of the waterway and really the configuration of the lot. On the left side of the picture is really just an excerpt or just a snapshot of the Aretha Estates townhome properties, and on the east side are single-family homes. And then again, this is another view of the properties along the townhomes with the boats being moored. Something we can actually see from the picture are right in the picture mooring to the shoreline in a perpendicular fashion just to be able to fit their vessels along the waterway. Some you can see are parallel, moored in a parallel fashion, but there's somewhat of an overhang. And I believe the city manager wanted to, or building official Steve Pizzillo will also add to this presentation.
At this point, Mr. Mayor and Council, the building official, Mr. Steve Pizzillo, will go over the 3 docks that are in question and the permit and the process that they went through.
Yes, good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members, through the city manager. I'm going to give you a brief synopsis of the 3 docks that are in effect here. First one is at 2171 Northeast 123rd Street. It was permitted in October of, application was in October of 2012, and it did receive a final inspection from my department on February 16th of 2013. If you will notice the plan, this is a little cutaway of the plan that was submitted. It does show a parallel mooring on this particular property. The next one is at 2145 Northeast 123rd Street. The application date was June 7th of 2013. It did receive a final inspection on May 14th of 2014. In addition, this particular dock is also showing the boat lift in a parallel position, not a perpendicular. The final is at 2141 Northeast 123rd Street. Had an application date of October 8th, 2012. With the final inspection of 2013, and the orientation on the plans does show perpendicular for this particular application.
Mr. Mayor, and as the building official just did go through the first 2 permits that he did go over were actually the permitted at parallel mooring, and we're aware that's not what took place in the end. Now those two are perpendicular. The last one, the plan did come in and did show perpendicular, and as I would say, an oversight by staff, it was approved. We've been out, myself personally, I know I've been out with all of the council members to see this, but I've been out with staff, the building official, and code enforcement, the police, and we've reviewed the said area, and the boats are parallel. The one thing I will say, our code does outline for no perpendicular parking for the boats. Those boats that are perpendicular right now, are they a health or safety issue for us? No, they're not. Are they impeding the waterway? No, they're not. Safety-wise, we did reach out to Miami-Dade County Fire and asked them to come to the site. They can't get back there to that area, regardless, because of the bridge. So find a fire back there. The perpendicular boats would not cause a problem if it does come to anything happening as far as safety-wise, because they'd have to fight the fire in a conventional manner with the hoses from the ground. What I would say at this time, I know it will be ultimately a policy decision. Removal, and one of the slides did show some of the boats, the three that are perpendicular, but as you'll notice throughout the waterways, and one of the slides showed, now other boats have begun parking perpendicular. And this was a problem throughout the waterways of our city, which goes against our code. Moving forward tonight, we will definitely, whichever way the council votes this evening, we will have to go out and enforce, code enforce the area. What I will say, staff, through their thorough analysis and what we did go through, going with no safety concerns, staff has recommended the text amendment be approved as is at this time. Again, that's the staff saying there's no health safety issues at this time. We're recommending approval. Again, it does go against the code that's already set in place, and these people have acted on this prior to this text amendment come into play right now. So it is a policy decision, and I turn it over to the dais at this time. But we do have staff here to answer questions as we move forward.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, may we ask, we're going to be here a long time tonight. Even at 2 minutes a speaker, I can guess about 3 hours worth. May we ask some questions from the dais before that?
You're saying before public hearing?
Before
Before
public hearing?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, if you want, I guess that would be fine. But the first question that I have, and our manager, when the plan is presented, do they specify how they're going to park parallel versus, do they actually write it on the request?
Not necessarily, but the plans do show orientation of the, it is going to be specific as to how something is going to be constructed. For example, if you're building a house, you're going to show the front door in the location that you want the front door. So in this case, the plans did show the orientation of the docks against the canals and against the seawall.
Well, the lift, is it a rectangular lift or square?
They're pretty square.
If it's square, it can go either way.
Well, if you just take, true, but if you take a look at the one that's up on the screen now, you can see that the actual runners that are running parallel to, that is where the cradle of the boat is. But in this case, these lifts can be, because they're pretty square, that the mechanism can be undone and moved to be perpendicular or parallel.
Yeah. You cannot speak unless you come to the mic, please, okay?
Mr. Mayor, may we ask some questions? Because I really want to get some clarity before this goes hog wild. Mr. Manager, I recognize you were not the city manager when these boat docks were approved. But we have city staff who is clearly asleep at the wheel And I think it's incredibly unfair that their mistake is now causing neighbors to fight neighbors, all of these people to be here for the next 3 hours, and us to have to make a decision. I think staff has weakly punted to this council to make a decision that was your staff's mess up. I recognize what you're saying here tonight, that on application, 2 of the docks showed parallel, but they still got final approvals as perpendicular. The third was proposed as perpendicular and approved as such. I know the name of the staff member who signed off on the first 2. He's retired now. We can't go after him. The third staff member who signed off on that third one shouldn't have a job anymore, because if they messed up that one so egregiously, how do we know they haven't messed up so many other things that's been assigned to them? So
hold off on the clapping, please. No clapping, because as the councilman said, we have a long way to go.
I'll make this brief. Staff screwed up. Staff should fix this. Staff should not give it to us to do what we're about to do for the next 3 hours. I think there's got to be a way for you to come up with a better recommendation than just changing the whole language to fit this. Because what do we do on 135th Street if this gets approved tonight and they want to come? And I heard you say, Mr. Manager, I want to clarify this too. You said if this passes tonight, you're going to go out and code enforce the whole waterway. Does that mean that you're going to start writing citations for people who have perpendicular jet skis and other watercraft?
Staff will enforce the laws that are in the code, sir. It's not to say that staff hasn't been enforcing the laws, but we will. Like I spent a week on the waterways, riding up and down the canals, addressing the issue, and there are several violations that are there that need to be pointed out and taken care of. And I'm just, once the decision is made tonight, if the text amendment is down, we will go out and start enforcing if it's voted down.
I really think we should go out. Well, I think we should continue this item, Mr. Mayor, and here's why. Tomorrow morning, staff's going to be out writing citations on everybody who's got a perpendicular watercraft, whether that's a boat or whether that's a jet ski or whether that's anything else. And that's going to really, if you think you guys are mad tonight, wait till everybody starts getting cited for those things.
If I may, Councilman Galvin, it wouldn't be necessarily citations that are fining them immediately. It will be warning citations for us to let them know that we understand that you've seen boats parked perpendicular in the past. That is not allowed in our code, and there will be warnings that will be issued.
Do our codes speak directly to boats versus other smaller watercraft, jet skis and the like?
No, sir, they just watercrafts.
So why wouldn't you bring back something to us then that sort of tightened everything up? Right now, we're going to pass something or not pass something that's going to have an effect on every watercraft, whether it be a 5-foot watercraft or a 20-foot watercraft throughout the city. And if your folks start running out and writing warning citations, then this is gonna get worse before it gets better. And staff, you guys screwed this up. You should be the ones to fix this on a cumulative basis and then bring it back to us with all sorts of fixes and not have us do it piecemeal so we have to deal with warring neighbors for the next 3 months.
Okay.
Mr. Councilman,
okay, let's go to the next council member who wishes to be heard.
I just want to clarify,
you can always
Mr.
come
Mayor.
back. Is there any other question?
I wanna hear from the public.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, no, well, I do agree with Councilman Galvin on some points, but let's be careful about calling for people's job just yet. I do understand, and there's several mistakes that have been made. I just got here a couple months ago, so obviously whatever that was made many years ago, the city manager is not even here. So if we're gonna look at who did what, and obviously there was a messed up somewhere, I do agree with him. Staff need to do whatever that they need to do because it's not fair to us, because at the end of this meeting, somebody's gonna be unhappy because we all have to vote one way or another, and and you have one group versus the other group, which is very unfair to us, especially to me because I was not part of however the decision was made, but this is what I signed up for. However, if there is something that staff can do to make it a little bit more fair, because we did mess this up, I will definitely welcome that, Councilman Galvin. Thank you.
Mayor, if I may, I just want to stress that the text amendment in front of you today is only for this one particular area, the particular subdivision. This is not for all of the waterways of the city of North Miami. This is one for only this particular subdivision today. I just want to clarify.
But we're opening Pandora's box with this tonight. If we make the change for one street, what do we say to people from the other streets? And there are 28 canals in Keystone Point. 8 of them are 100 feet or wider. So if somebody from one of those 100-foot wide, any of those remaining 7 100-foot wide canals comes back next week and says, well, you did it on 123rd, do it for us because you can still navigate the waterway, what do we do? Do we have this discussion all over again? Wait, folks, guys.
You only speak when public hearing is open, please.
You guys
If not,
have
I'm just
plenty
going to
of
have to close the public hearing for tonight.
But I'm trying to get some questions
If you continue
answered.
to be disruptive, I'm going to have to close public hearing for this item. Please.
Mr. Mayor, I'll shut up with this. Staff, you have been weak in handling this. I would ask you to be strong right now. Pull it back. Tell us you're going to find some solid overall cumulative solutions and then bring it back to us. Because what we're doing tonight is we're sticking our finger in the wall and we're going to watch water squirt out that crack, and then we're going to stick the finger in the wall at the next meeting and water's going to shoot out that crack, and we're going to be doing this for the next 3 months. Take it from the dude who's been up here 17 years.
Okay, any other?
I'd motion to continue this item indefinitely until staff can come up with a cumulative waterway approach for the entire city that addresses this.
I'll second that. People have been waiting 2 hours. Let them be heard. Then continue.
Excuse me. Well, you know what? Then since he's calling out, let's.
I have a motion on the floor made by Councilman
Did you
Galvin.
second it?
I did, but
Yeah, he seconded.
No.
Mayor?
If we have to open it, no.
Guys,
My motion is
guys.
to continue this. Staff has not handled this.
Councilman, we heard you loud and clear, and your motion has been seconded by Vice Mayor. And if we wish to continue with further discussion,
Mayor?
If we open it for you, Mr. Mayor.
former Mayor, please, I cannot open the mic.
I brought a gentleman
I'm sorry,
from California
former Mayor, please,
here
please.
to testify.
Former Mayor, please, I cannot honor your request at this time.
These people have waited 2 hours. Why don't you listen to them and then you can
Former
continue the
Mayor,
hearing?
at this point of time, you are being more disruptive than anything else, former Mayor.
I know.
Well, no, you seconded the
No,
item.
I did, but since
The item is seconded, so it's still alive, so
Okay, there we go.
May I say something?
the motion is still alive. Go ahead.
I'm gonna make a lot of people very unhappy tonight, either from one side of a canal or the rest of the waterfront community. But everybody is here. I have spent just probably 50 hours on research, talking to people, and the people are here to speak. You've got expert witnesses, and, I'm ready. I'm ready to listen to these people. If after they speak and then we want to continue it, that's fine. But people are here. They have the right to be heard.
With
So-
that, excuse me.
Mr. Mayor, in timeliness, so that we can maybe get out before 1 a.m., I withdraw my motion to continue, and I invite you to open up public discussion.
Thank you.
And staff, I'm going to hammer you through the entire night, so don't you go in. No, and I'm serious. Don't you dare leave this dang room.
Mr. Clerk, what motion was it that was seconded?
I withdraw my motion to continue. Let's have at it, and staff, you're going to be the bad guys all night. I think that everybody involved in this should be in this room tonight. Every staff member who signed off should be in this room tonight.
He probably went home.
They get to sit at home and pick up a paycheck tomorrow.
Okay, public hearing is now open, and anyone who continues to talk in this room, I'm going to have the officers to please escort you out of the chambers, please. If you continue to be disruptive, this is the last time I am warning you. Call the police officers for me, please. Where are the officers? How many do we have tonight? Okay, call for backup, please. Do you need backup? Okay. I'm not kidding. Okay, public hearing is now open.
Yes, thank you, and Mayor, thank you for letting us speak. Mr. Galvin, thank you for withdrawing your motion. And I say that only because the people have been waiting here for 2 hours, and I know they want to go home. And I apologize to everyone if I'm verbose, but thank you, because you can continue it after everyone's spoken. At least everyone won't have come here and waited 2 hours for nothing. So thank you for letting everybody speak. I represent Mr. Behar and Mr. Martinez, and Mr. Martinez's father, who's here, Angel Martinez. I also have an expert who's come from California, former warrant officer, Charles Chemnitz. He's a captain. I want to thank staff, and I realize that you're upset with staff, Mr. Galvin, but I think staff has done a tremendous job in analyzing the situation, in applying the criteria and researching the issues, not based on what I said and not based on what other folks have said, but they've done their own independent investigation, and I think that that's important. Before the meeting, I spoke with a gentleman in the audience who is an architect who has sat on city boards, and he said, I don't understand, because this will enhance the area. And that's kind of the way I understand it. We're asking you to support this text change to allow people to tie up perpendicular, to allow 25 feet, which is reasonable and consistent for the reasons that I will tell you and for the reasons that I will show you. These properties are unique. They're 19 feet wide. They don't have side yards. The folks who own these townhomes.
I'm going to give you the extra 30 seconds because you lost 30 seconds.
I don't think, Mayor, I think that as the applicant, I should be permitted to make my entire presentation.
How long is it?
I'm sorry, sir?
How long is it?
Maybe 10 minutes.
No, 10 minutes is way too long, Mr.
Well,
Fogelman.
I will try to condense it then, okay?
Please.
First of all, I'm going to jump forward and address some of your remarks and the remark that staff made. Because for 30 years, since these townhouses have been here, people have parked perpendicular. The code was changed in 2002 at the urging of some people because there was a particular problem that they wanted to deal with by some people who were rafting up and being disruptive, and the way they dealt with it was to change the code, okay? But this is not a health or safety issue. It doesn't impede on the waterway. If there is a safety concern, if there's no safety concern, why cite people? If you had a jet ski and you lived in Keystone Point, the correct and safe way to moor the jet ski is to ride it up on its mooring against your seawall. You should change the code so that people who have jet skis on floating platforms can moor them perpendicular. That's the first, easiest, it's like a no-brainer. If you tried to pull a jet ski up sideways, all you're doing is you're straining the ropes. That's why these floating docks are moored up against the concrete, so the jet ski can ride up, and then it stops in its cradle. You can't do this sideways. You're going to tear up the sea bottom, tear up the grass. It makes no sense. It is sensible to change the code for Keystone for jet skis. It is sensible to change the area for these folks who live in Arita Estates. 97 people, 97 families who would not be able to use the water behind them, who couldn't have a boat bigger than 11 feet. I'm happy if the mayor wants to give me the time to show you a 5-foot dock, 2.5 feet for a motor, 17 feet for a boat. That's 25 feet, 1 foot for the space between them. anything less than 25 feet, which we asked for 30, but the Planning Commission unanimously endorsed 25 feet. Anything less puts people, leave it where it is, people can only have an 11-foot boat. Be reasonable. Allow these people to have a reasonable use of their property. Allow them to have and use a boat. I'm just about done. I have an expert witness. He's retired warrant officer Charles Chemnitz. He's been a captain for 40 years. He most recently served as the training officer for 1,400 members of the Coast Guard Auxiliary in charge of safe boating. Been navigation officer, base commander 4 years in Palm Beach, commander of search and rescue in Key West. I could go on and on. Most important, he knows the waterway. Mr. Chemnitz, could you please talk about the safety issues? And I apologize, I would have a lot more to say if I had the opportunity, and I would like the opportunity, but I'm going to respect the mayor, and thank you.
Mr. Mayor, council members. Well, first of all, it doesn't sound like...
Point of order, sir. Please just state your name and address.
Charles
Thank you.
Chemnitz. And I flew out from California for
Address?
this. 221 Avenida, Barcelona, San Clemente, California.
Okay.
Like Frank said, I spent 38 years in the Coast Guard. I've had my captain's license for 40 years. I've run vessels from 15 feet to 110 feet. I'm currently running seven different sport fishing boats out in California, ranging from 48 feet to 95 feet. I'm telling you this just because I want you to know that I spent my whole life on the water, and both running boats and training people to run their boats. I'm very familiar with boat handling characteristics. But since my time is limited, I'm just going to go down. I'm just going to read bullets because I came to talk about safety. So with the proposed dock setbacks, a boat would have 50 feet to turn around in. That's assuming 20 feet on one side, 25 feet on the other side, roughly 50 feet to turn a boat. Some people may not be able to turn a 35-foot boat around in that space, but most people could. If they can't, they could go up to the west end of the canal, which will, after having looked at it, I believe never have anything built on the south side. If you go all the way to the west end, it's encroached by mangroves, but there's at least 100 feet of open seawall there. Is that it for my time?
Go ahead.
Wow. The bridge is 11 feet high, which would restrict the size of the boats coming into the canal. It's 34 feet wide, which gives a boat less room to pass underneath the bridge than the canal would give for two boats to pass in virtually any part of the canal. All of your pilings, all of your docks are going to have reflectors on them. If you wanted to go further, you could light the pilings. The Coast Guard has a private ASA navigation section where you could find out what type of characteristics you'd want to put on the lights. It's a dead-end canal, meaning there isn't a lot of traffic on that canal. People that are on that canal are on the canal because they live on the canal, with the rare exception of somebody taking a Sunday afternoon drive up the canal. Adding 5 feet, and this is important, there's been talk of how boats have revolved over the last 20, 30, 40 years, or since the townhomes have been put in. Back then, a large boat was a 17-foot Boston whaler. Now a small boat is a 17-foot Boston whaler. But what adding 5 feet would do is give people a reasonably safe platform to go out on the ocean in. As it stands now, with the 19 feet, you might be able to squeeze a 12 or 13-foot boat into those properties, which wouldn't be a safe boat to take offshore, but people are going to want to do that. They're going to want to go offshore, fish for Dorado or whatever. They're not going to want to have to stay in the bay. So that's kind of my bulletized summary, and I just really don't see any. Just one more thing. I've been up and down that canal probably 30 times in my lifetime. I was assigned in Miami for a long time. I used to sell live bait in North Miami. I used to throw a cast net on that canal. I was the commanding officer of the Coast Guard station in Palm Beach, where we had many canals very similar to this. So I don't want you to think that coming out here from California, I don't know the waterways of South Florida, because I know them very well. Thank you. Any questions?
My name is Stuart Kornblum. I live on 12785 Maple Road. I'm speaking for the Keystone Point Homeowners Association. We oppose any changes to the City of North Miami's zoning and code that currently prohibits perpendicular boat parking in the canals of North Miami. To start with, the gentleman from California recently said that we could all use the turning basin in one of his letters. There is no turning basin in that canal. No, you may not. Our representative has spent over 20 hours researching similar ordinances in waterfront communities in South Florida and beyond, and I specifically wish to speak against tab Q. North Miami's ordinance is no more restrictive than others and less restrictive than most. The effects of the adoption of the proposed ordinance are not obvious to non-boaters and those not living on the waterways. North Miami and every other municipality with a waterfront has created regulations to ensure navigability and safety for all its residents. The existing North Miami ordinance was the result of research and deliberation. It has been debated and reaffirmed. Nothing has changed along the waterway that would require any modification to the existing law, except that some residents are claiming a hardship. If you live in a waterfront home and you have a boat, you ain't got a hardship. There is absolutely no hardship in this case. The average townhome lot has an average waterfront of 19 feet. The townhomes were purchased with the existing parallel mooring requirement. If the resident has a boat that doesn't fit within the 19 feet, they either bought the wrong boat or the wrong townhouse. No one is denied access to the water. The only perceived hardship is that some want a boat that is longer than their property line.
All right, thank you very much, sir. 2 minutes is up. Public hearing is still open.
Mike Moskwa. I live on Northeast 123rd Street, 2215. I'm on the Arita Canal division. My first comment to the previous speaker was a reaction that I felt all around me of rudeness and condensation. He also indicated that these people who buy these homes should know what they're getting into because of the current ordinance. But we had a previous speaker who said that the ordinance that he's referring to came in 2002. So the people who built the townhomes, lived in the townhomes, were under a previous ordinance. So I just want to make that correction. I am very saddened by the reaction that these townhomes I've lived in for 16 years have continually gotten from the people in Keystone. The Keystone homeowners have an attitude of disrespect in general. They don't like the townhomes, which means they obviously don't like the people who live in the townhomes. You have Sans Souci across 123rd, lovely community. You have Keystone on the other side of the canal. And you have this row of townhomes that people have disrespected, not paid attention to, fought over for years. I have pictures, I'll leave them with you. We've spent a lot of time, my husband and I, on our boat going through the canals, looking at such egregious violations by the Keystone homeowners. There are many boats that are parked perpendicularly and other watercraft. Some people have 2 lifts. Some of those things
Okay.
are well over 30 feet.
The time
So
is
I
up,
just
sir.
want you to know what's out there.
Thank you. Public hearing is still open.
My name's Gary Hillsmith, 2019 Northeast 124th Street. I live in Keystone. I live right across from the townhomes. I've been living there for the last 25 years. And I was here when there was that issue of the perpendicular boat lifts. In fact, it was right across my canal. First of all, the first thing is, and I really feel embarrassed, Mr. Galvin, I'm really apologize, to chastise your staff when maybe there's a procedural issue because they may have been, maybe you should change the procedure, maybe somebody should be able to double check, but you chastise somebody that goes through all kinds of plans all over every single day because they missed perpendicular and parallel when they know nothing about boating or probably haven't seen boating plans, I think is ridiculous. So I would just reconsider firing people. I mean, I work with hundreds of people every single day, and if I have to take that attitude, nobody would work for me. and so I really think you should think about.
I can't fire anybody.
Okay, fine. I'm saying, but I know what you can or can't do, but what you said is just outrageous. Number one. Number two is 17 years ago when this thing came about 17 years ago, I stood up and I said the same thing again. First of all, I think that staff have done a great job in terms of the research. I've lived in there for so many years. There's never been even a close accident. The person that was parked his boat perpendicular to where my house was, eventually because of the new ordinance that came out in 2002, he sold his house and they're using that house now for Airbnb. I'd rather have his boat parked there than an Airbnb every couple of weeks. Having to put a boat over there, it costs money. People are improving their lots. The first thing should be safety. Safety in the public interest. If it was unsafe and against the public interest, then you guys have a point. But when that ordinance was changed, it was changed because somebody or some person had an idea who had some influence or had some, but there was no objective review, nothing to the extent of what has gone on based on what I've heard, based on what staff's done. And I believe if staff have made that decision, then
Okay.
there should be no reason not to follow them.
Well said.
William Welsh, 1180, 118. I agree, Mr. Galvin. Not that I think you're opening up a can of worms by approving a little section of North Miami waterways. You're going to have people on other waterways wanting this or wanting that or wanting to change this. I think you'd be wise to go through and look at the whole code and make the code for North Miami, not for one little section of the canal. Whatever you do for them, you should be doing for everybody else. And what you do for everybody else, you should be doing for them. So I think Mr. Galvin is very right in calling for postponing this. Not having staff go out and write citations tomorrow for every violations, but postponing this and doing this for North Miami, not just for one little section. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Walter Miller. I've lived in Keystone for well over 30 years, 2263 Bayview Lane. I don't live on that canal. I think one point that needs to be made, they talk about this canal, 26 canals in Keystone or whatever it was. This is the only canal that's restricted by that little bridge. They say the bridge is 32 feet wide. It's very shallow on any side. That bridge is very restrictive. That's one unique situation. Another unique situation is these townhomes. And I love boating, and to deprive them of an opportunity to use a boat ample size, to use the water adequately, I don't think is quite right. I live in Keystone. I lived there a long time. I have no problem with it. The people who bought these townhomes recently have probably paid $300,000, maybe even more. I know what my taxes run. Thank God for Save Our Homes, and I think y'all should try to appease your constituents and keep the tax base as high as we can, so there's money to be spent in this city. I think the tax base for these townhomes are important. They didn't buy these homes to overlook 123rd Street, I guarantee you that. Thank you.
All right, public hearing is still open, I guess.
Good evening. Like it's been said here already today, yes, the property lines.
Name and address.
Oh, correction, I'm sorry. Alfredo Martinez, 2145 Northeast 123rd Street. I am one of the ones that proposed or got an approval from the city for my lift. I think the former manager made a mistake. That's fine. If you read it, I don't believe he's reading it correctly. It specifically shows that it's perpendicular. As much as I want to agree with some gentlemen here that maybe perpendicular parking might be aesthetically pleasing to them, I did buy a 19-feet property, but an 11-foot rowboat is not an experience I'm going to try to do again as an exile from Cuba. It's nice, but I don't want to get on a rowboat and go out on the waterway. I mean, I'm sure you don't, sir. So I want to relive that experience. But that being said, I got an approved, I bought a property. These townhomes are uniquely, they do face a waterway, but they don't cost $200,000 as maybe another residence in North Miami. These are expensive properties that run in the neighborhood of $300,000 to $400,000. So for me to be chastised to have a rowboat on a property costing me $500,000, I don't believe it's fair, knowing that the staff did a report that every other major city does allow perpendicular parking for 25 feet or out. On top of that being said, I did pay for a permit. I spent $30,000 on a boat lift. The city approved it. Was it a mistake? Was it an error? It could have been. But what do I do now? Am I supposed to lose $30,000 or $300,000 when I bought the property? I didn't know. I just owned the house in 2013. I didn't know that there was this problem going on for 30 years with these battle between Keystone. If not, I wouldn't have bought the property. Because to be honest with you, now I'm in a standstill. I spent, between me and my father, purchasing the property, building a boat, selling a boat because it was not in compliance with the city code, buying a smaller boat to be in compliance. I had a 26-foot boat. I was out of foot if I was parking perpendicular facing outward. So I bought a boat that's in compliance. So I've met whatever the city's asking me and more.
All right.
I just asked for what's fair.
Okay.
Thank you.
William Prevotel, 11